Hello, I'm David Bulow, Director of Educational Programs at Proformative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled 3 Reasons to Replace Spreadsheet Budgeting, Accuracy, Efficiency, and Decision Making. Learn why FP&A professionals are moving away from spreadsheets in the budgeting process and moving toward cloud-based real-time planning. Gain knowledge from an experienced practitioner sharing his real-world experience moving from spreadsheets to distributed cloud-based planning, including lessons learned, best practices, and things to definitely avoid. With the additional time and insights from improved planning, they now bring solutions to the table rather than endlessly turning the numbers, making the whole team shine. Just a few things before we get started. I'd like to thank Host Analytics for making this event possible and for their generous support, for which has helped us deliver this webinar at no cost. I'd like to welcome everyone to Proformative. Those who are returning, thank you. Those who are new, welcome. Proformative is the fastest growing online community with uniquely valuable online peer network. We provide direct subject matter advice and recently launched our Proformative Exchange, which is for corporate fin products and services, kind of like Yelp, but for your products that you'll be using today and looking to use. All of this comes completely noise-free. Check it out at proformative.com. A few items before we get started. The recording of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event, and the presentation is already on the website at proformative.com/resources for you to download and be able to follow along. If you would like CPE credits, you need to have answered all 3 polling questions during the event, and you have pre-registered for the CPE credits. If you do have any questions, please email us at spe@proformative.com. Please use today's question box in your GoToWebinar panel, and we will try to get your question answered during our Q&A session. You'll be asked to take a short 1-minute survey at the end of the presentation. Please give us this last of your time so we can strive to improve and continue to bring you great content. Today's learning objectives: you'll learn valuable alternatives to spreadsheet-based planning, budgeting, and forecasting. Discover the efficiencies gained from moving from planning to the cloud, and learn how FP&A professionals can become a better business partner. And now I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Brian Delmore Buckley. Brian brings 14 years of experience in the corporate performance management software space to Host Analytics. Serving in a number of different capacities, he's been an implementation consultant, subject matter expert for development, critical customer success manager, and product manager for Hyperion Solutions, Oracle after acquiring Hyperion, and Host Analytics. Prior to beginning his career in corporate performance management software, Brian leveraged his accounting and finance background working in public accounting and in finance for a global publisher. And with that, it's a great pleasure to turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, David, and thank you everybody for having me here today. I'm going to be talking to you today about the current industry trends as it pertains to the position of the finance organization within the broader organizational context, as well as technology trends which are impacting finance's role. Then Roger is going to follow up with a case study talking about his specific experience transitioning from the world of spreadsheets to a cloud-based EPM solution. So to help set the stage for our session, it is helpful to understand the expectations of finance. So this slide talks specifically to the C-level suite. However, I feel that it is really applicable to the finance organization as a whole. So if we look at the bottom of the pyramid here, kind of the table stakes or the expected experience that finance brings to the table is managing the numbers and reporting those numbers. That's always been what the traditional role of the finance organization as reporting up to the CFO would be. But CEOs are demanding more and more from their CFOs in today's times. And specifically, there are certain qualities that he's going to be expecting of the CFO. And an important one is decisiveness. So a lack of clear decision-making can be critical to a business's prospects. So the CEO will expect the CFO to spot opportunities and risks and take the necessary measures to pursue growth and protect the business. And lastly, the CEOs are asking CFOs to be their trusted advisor. So having a seat at the table, defining the strategy and the execution that will ultimately get the company to the position that they want to. And the CFO is really taking on new skills to get the finance organization to that level, and they're being much more of that strategy advisor as well as an ambassador throughout the company versus sitting back behind the screens with the green lamps and crunching the numbers. So these objectives, of course, are great on paper. However, we can't usually just click our heels to make it happen. There are obstacles that stand in the way of our evolution. And the obstacles that we have in the way today is that we have a data explosion. We have all this information that is coming at us as finance professionals that either is siloed, so it's coming from a lot of different systems that don't talk to each other, or the fact that just the volume of the data that is available, accessing data via the different data services that are out there that might help inform businesses, like understanding different currency rates, understanding fluctuations in commodity prices, understanding different relationships to how the business is run is overloading the finance organization. And still we have the disconnections between the people, the process, and the technology. So to continue on the data example, there's all this data coming in, but at either A, the resources don't know what to do with the data, how to analyze it most appropriately because it's brand new and it's so massive. In addition to the processes don't necessarily support the actual information that is available and how to use that most effectively to ultimately get to the best decision making possible. And there's still a lot of that work that is manual. The availability of information and/or the processes that are being put into place are still somewhat antiquated, meaning that there's not a lot of tools and/or systems that are out there that are available to help them drive the process in a more automated fashion. So what does this lead to? This ultimately leads to a lack of control, right? We've seen quite a few examples of individuals that don't have or haven't been given the responsibilities to act on this new information and make those decisions that they should be tasked with. And so, subsequently we throw money at the problem. We try to add more resources, maybe more resources with specific skill sets that will help fill in those gaps. And ultimately what this leads to is you've got some individuals that are working on lower value add activities and they are not receiving the job satisfaction that they would expect. And similarly, you have individuals that might be overloaded on another end of the spectrum, and they, again, are not feeling valued and not feeling like they're contributing to the overall objectives of the company. So what do we do? As a former executive that I worked with said, let the data set you free, not enslave you. So we recognize that there's a large amount of information that's out there, and we recognize that we need a way to distill that information down into meaningful insight. And what we need to do is we need to focus on the people, the process, and the technology to ultimately get us to data to a state where data is an insight, right? Where we have the ability to start analyzing that within a well-defined process that ultimately gets us to the opportunity of making those decisions and sharing those decisions across the organization as well as external to the organization, such as board of directors and outside advisors. So what systems are important to delivering the insight which you need to take your business forward? Well, of course, the EPM systems, or enterprise performance management systems, are really the definition of what we were talking about in terms of taking all of this information from disparate different data systems and combining those together to provide insights. And enterprise performance management is a suite of financial applications for planning, forecasting, and budgeting. So kind of starting at the top of the circle, this process everybody has to do. At the end of the day, we have to prepare the information that allows us to determine where we're going as a company. And then for those individuals that are in public companies and/or have significant overseas operations. The enterprise performance management systems focus on close management, statutory financial consolidations, as well as disclosing those results to external stakeholders, right? So actually doing that last mile of finance, that external reporting out to, say, the SEC if we're talking about the United States, or internationally to IFRS regulations, to local country regulations. And then at the bottom of the cycle is that reporting, not only external, like we talked about with respect to the close cycle, but also internal, right? So we have different levels of reporting that is happening across the organization. We've got departmental level reporting, and we have VP and or C-level reporting. We have advisory level reporting, such as boards of directors, banks, if we're talking about loan covenants. So there's all different kinds of information that ultimately needs to be reported, and that information resides within a single system, the EPM system. And lastly, the analytics, the strategy setting, and the alignment and measurement of our goals, right? So that closes the loop of enterprise performance management, where all of these capabilities not only are available, but they are laid out in a very reasonable fashion and workable fashion, such that anybody can come in and any point of this loop, any point of this cycle, and pick it up and find it easy to use and very value added. So EPM is not a new concept. I'm sure everybody is pretty familiar with the concept. So what makes it more appealing today? And what makes it more appealing today is the concept of cloud computing. So you ask, what is cloud computing definition-wise? It's the modern way to deliver software, and it's transforming the enterprise. It's a huge technology trend similar to the shift from mainframe computers to client-server technology. And companies are swapping out their old legacy software to gain the advantage of the cloud. For example, sales leaders are transforming their sales departments with Salesforce.com. Over 100,000 companies have chosen the cloud for their CRM system. Similarly, HR leaders are transforming their organizations with Workday. Large companies like DuPont and Hewlett-Packard are choosing the cloud for their human capital management systems. And thirdly, finance leaders are transforming their companies with NetSuite. Over 16,000 mid-market companies have chosen the cloud for ERP. And not to be left out of the equation, finance leaders are also transforming their enterprises with the cloud. And enterprises like Mayo Clinic, Zep, and Sanmina are choosing the cloud to deliver their financial results. Not only deliver, but compile, analyze, and ultimately deliver their financial results. So let's understand a bit more in detail why customers are choosing the cloud. Here are the top 6 reasons from Forrester, an independent technology research firm. They surveyed 920 software decision makers at firms that are using or planning to use software as a service. What's interesting is that they uncovered that companies are not just valuing the lower overall cost of the cloud, which is the kind of the typical term that you might hear when folks talk about cloud computing, the typical advantage. Companies are also choosing the cloud for business value, including faster release cycles, talking quarters, not years, quicker implementation times, implementing in weeks, not months and or years, and improved focus and agility. Finance is the owner of the application, and they can adjust it accordingly. So if they acquire new companies, they have the ability and the agility to add that infrastructure into their application and be up and running and reporting results in no time. And we believe these software decision makers have it right and describe the benefits of cloud computing fitting into 3 major buckets: agility and speed, security, and lower overall cost. Now let's drill into these in a bit more detail to understand how they manifest themselves in a cloud computing environment. So agility, we define business agility as, first, finance can own and manage the application without being dependent on others like specialized consultants or IT resources. Second, implementing fast. Quicker implementation means quicker return on investment. Third, it means having a platform that is flexible enough to handle changing needs. And fourth, free from the upgrade burden, not only the cost, but the time and the lost productivity of the resources involved. So for example, at Host Analytics, we have a customer that first bought our solution in early 2011. Later that year, the executive team decided to pursue an inorganic growth strategy via mergers and acquisitions. So they just rolled out our close management solution, which consolidates the results from their newly acquired companies. And lastly, once they evolved to wanting to get a better visualization and better understanding of the revenue planning process, they simply switched on our advanced revenue planning application. So now let's address security. So most people realize that emailing spreadsheets with sensitive financial information is risky. Other people realize that their legacy software wasn't necessarily designed with the latest security technology and practices in mind. For some companies, they may not have the IT staff and resources to keep up on the latest in security measures as well. And security is the lifeblood of a cloud vendor's business. We have to invest considerable resources to maintain state-of-the-art security. Otherwise, we don't have a business and we don't have any customers. So key things to look for from a security perspective are how the data is encrypted, the service level agreements that provide uptime guarantees, the privacy of data compliance, and the security and compliance audits that are conducted by the company with independent third parties. Lastly, let's talk about lower overall costs. On-premise software has many costs. There's large upfront software costs, which many companies have a tough time swallowing. Then, of course, there is the cost to implement, which usually the implementation costs are as much as the software costs initially. What is often hidden is the internal cost to set up the infrastructure to support the software. There's CapEx-related costs to buy the equipment like servers, backup servers, test servers, network equipment, firewalls, security systems. Then there's internal labor costs, which can actually be more than the CapEx costs. And it's the cost of your IT and finance teams whose time will be consumed throughout a lengthy implementation. With cloud computing, there is subscription and implementation. That's it. And these are typically a fraction of the on-premise costs. So as you can see, cloud is changing the EPM category. However, Excel is still used everywhere. So this used to be the age-old question for EPM vendors when they were designing software. How much do we embrace Excel? How much of it is it a friend of ours, or how much of it is a foe of ours? And most users are coming from native Excel when seeking an EPM system. So, but in reality, this question is irrelevant. And the reason for that is that Excel is fantastic because of its usage. Everything from the expert Excel jockeys to the casual once-a-week users. Everybody knows how to use Excel. And there have been huge investments in people, either individuals developing skills and or expertise in expanding the usage of the tool. So they've spent a lot of time building models and understanding how they can harness the power of Excel and apply that to their business. In addition, large amounts of data exist in Excel spreadsheets. We will touch on this in just a bit, in a bit more detail. And lastly, the business knowledge that is housed in Excel. The number of financial and operational models is significant. And so I'm thinking that we can't just ignore Excel. And I think that there's some research that backs this up. And to further this point, Gartner had done a study that indicates that roughly 70% of the users obtain information for EPM systems from Excel. So that's 7 out of every 10 users are pulling information from Excel to seed an EPM system. So there is no way that an EPM system could be anything but a friend to Excel. Now, there are some challenges with Excel, however. Unfortunately, it is a personal productivity tool, and it's not a system. Therefore, you have expensive resources, your people, that are well-educated and well-trained, that spend a large amount of time performing manual operations of little or no value. So they spend an inordinate amount of time collecting data, just the process of collecting data, when in reality they've been hired and they've been trained to analyze the data. So their skills are being wasted. In addition, Microsoft Excel makes it easy for anyone to do the kind of number crunching once reserved for accountants and statisticians. But the world's best-selling spreadsheet software has also contributed to the proliferation of bad math. So in the case of JP Morgan Chase, their analyst created a model that was supposed to monitor and limit the amount of risk the bank's London traders were taking. It was operated through a series of Excel spreadsheets which had to be completed manually by a process of copying and pasting data from one spreadsheet to another. Is anybody's kind of red light going off when we hear that? One key measure was added when it should have been averaged. The result? Risk officers at JP Morgan believed the credit derivatives bets were half as risky as they actually were, thus overstating a $6.2 billion trading loss in 2012. $6.2 billion. That's an amazing amount of information that is the cause of Excel being used in a process where there's a ton of risk associated with it. In addition, in April of this year, a Wall Street Journal MarketWatch column stated that close to 90% of spreadsheet documents contain errors. 90%, that's a huge amount. 9 out of every 10 spreadsheets have an error in it somewhere. And you know that these are leading to some kind of material decision-making process. So what do we do at this point? Well, as we have seen, there are great advantages to Excel, as well as some significant challenges. So why don't we just keep the good, like the familiarity with the tool, right? So we have a lot of investment that's been made in this. Like I said, our resources have spent a lot of time understanding what Excel is all about, how to use it to harness the power of Excel and the new features that are always introduced, and provide that investment in creating models that are spread across the company. So these exist, and that information is important for taking the business forward. It doesn't just go away. And in addition, the data manipulation features that are available in Excel are tremendous. The ability to slice or to flip information, so pivot information, the ability to find different spreads, to find formulas of all different makes and type, it is a powerful tool. However, we should look to leave behind the bad and leaving the lack of control and security, right? So the protection of worksheets and or somebody overriding a formula. We need to get rid of that. We need to get rid of the siloed work environment, meaning Excel in and of itself is it's a silo work environment. Somebody has a spreadsheet that exists on their desktop and they're doing work on it, and they may send it out via email and share it with the rest of the users in their group, but at any given time they're an individual working on that piece of the pie. And lastly, the uncertainty around the validity of data. So as we talked about, there's the sharing of Excel spreadsheets, there's the overriding, there's the concern about actually having a formula that was input incorrectly, or fat fingering an entry into an Excel sheet that might not have been caught. So there's a tremendous amount of concern around the validity of data, so we should get rid of that. So what does that really leave you with? So that leaves you with the best of both worlds. The combination of two great technologies, Excel and the cloud. Modern EPM systems such as Host Analytics deliver on this best-of-breed approach to keep users in a comfortable environment. Excel, all of our users are very comfortable coming from that environment, so let's keep them there. Let's keep them in that comfort zone and that ease of use. But harnessing the benefits of a modern way of delivering software that delivers speed, agility, security, and all at a lower cost. So thank you all for your time today. I will turn it over to David, who has our first polling question.
And we'll be bringing that polling question. You should be seeing it on your screen in just moments. I do want to remind everybody that if you are looking for CPE credit, you must answer all 3 polling questions. This is the first of 3. And if you do have a question for Brian, please use the question box in your GoToWebinar panel, and we will try to get to those in the Q&A session at the back end of the presentation. We'll leave this open for a little bit more time here, and so everyone can get their questions in. Even if you're not going for CPE, please answer this as it is statistical in nature, and this helps us get a better overall result. I'll be closing down the polling question in just seconds here, so if you could please get your answers in, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you, and I'll be closing that down as we continue. Now I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Roger King. controller of SkyHawke Technologies. Roger's responsibilities include consolidating financial reporting, direction of overall accounting functions, internal accounting controls, as well as budgeting, planning aspects for the business. He is also involved in the company's ERP by driving how it's integrated with finance. Prior to his current position, Roger has experience in public accounting, followed by 23 years in the process chemical manufacturing industry. Roger is a certified public accountant, licensed in the state of Mississippi, and is a member of the American Institute of CPAs. And with that, I'll turn it over to Roger.
Thank you, David, and hello, everyone. I'd like to start with just an overview and agenda of what I'd like to accomplish, and in doing so, I'd like to tell you a little bit about SkyHawke Technologies. I'd like to outline some of the product requirements we had when we did our selection, and as well as the selection criteria for the specific vendor that we would choose. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about implementation and some about how we interface from our remote systems to host by data loads, what some of our payoffs were, and then next finally what our next steps are. SkyHawke Technologies is the company that pioneered the GPS rangefinder about the turn of the century. We are approved by the USGA and are considered a leader in the industry. We're the only provider that, if you're familiar with GPS devices, that actually goes out and walks and maps courses for accuracy, and accuracy is, of course, the key to any type of distance measurement on a golf course. We have about 28,000, actually that's up to about 30,000 courses worldwide mapped to where we provide the mapping service. We are driven by a membership business model, which is similar to what Host Analytics does, which provides several values to our members that subscribe, including the accurate course maps, social networking, scoring, etc. And we do have a worldwide presence. Let us look first at our legal structure. SkyHawke is spread, again, I mentioned, internationally. Our presence in North America extends through the U.S. into Canada as far as devices of GPS-type equipment. We offer game improvement services, and recently are moving into a tee times management effort as well as e-tailing. In Europe, we offer the devices throughout Europe, Japan, and China. These are the products that we now have in-house with Host Analytics. We manage full consolidations. We do data loads through their services. ETL is extract, translate, and load. We manage all of our budgeting and planning through Host Analytics. We use scorecards and dashboards. And Executive Report Manager, which is pretty much a favorite for me, in that it's a place to assemble reports into books that includes multimedia, etc., that makes them very, very easy to manage and very presentable. And if you notice, the last item on the list that I'm referring to is Boomi, is in red. We own that product. It is a connection product to ERP systems, etc., that we are in process of implementing but don't have fully implemented at this point. We rely instead totally on the ETL product that's listed above for now, but we're moving away from that. When we started the process of selecting and implementing, of course, we defined several feature sets that we needed. Consolidation, of course, is paramount, and in doing so, we wanted to have definable custom dimensions. I've actually had some experience way back in these products, and I've noticed or have followed how they evolved, and they've moved from kind of a flat file type scenario to more of a multiple dimension environment in a cube, which adds lots of power. So we wanted that. Workflow control, budgeting, and forecasting, powerful data loading capabilities that I just mentioned, and reporting was very, very key to us. We wanted both structured and ad hoc reporting capabilities. And then we wanted to be able to extend the information that we had housed in the EPM environment beyond just finance, so that we could gather key metrics, of all sorts of types and put them all in one place for access. Drilling a little bit down on each of these requirements, for consolidation, it was important for us to leverage a cube environment with multiple definable dimensions to be able to easily load data from our remote systems, which is, you know, a big driver in all of this. Doing so with load rules that will allow you to bring data in stages, multiple account structures, different charts of accounts that are mapped in the process so that you can have disparate systems all come into one standardized platform. Then in consolidation itself, we wanted to for sure have automated intercompany matching and consolidating eliminations. And since we do have a worldwide presence, we needed foreign currency translation. We wanted the process, well, now I'm talking about planning, to be a very controlled process versus managing a lot of spreadsheets, as Brian alluded to be able to distribute that to people who are the drivers for the assumptions behind a plan or a budget. We wanted to be able to address multiple scenarios, not just budgets, but forecasts and initiatives. And in certain areas, we wanted to have the most control, which would be revenue planning, where we're not just talking about accounts, but we talk about customers, geographies, etc. We wanted to be able to look at HR by itself and be able to deal with headcounts and have that then translate into costs that are included in the plan or the budget. And then, of course, operating expenses and capital spending. The planning process that we now have in place now promotes ownership throughout the organization. In the past, like I know many companies rely on spreadsheets, and spreadsheets are distributed. They're hard to manage, and people will tend to disclaim ownership of them when they're brought back in and then consolidated and published in the budgets. We wanted to be able to avoid that. And then in reporting, we wanted both structured reporting and ad hoc reporting. Structured reporting needed to be secure. We wanted to be in a position of being able to create reports by using row sets, using column sets instead of recreating every report from scratch. It's kind of a mix and match situation. We wanted to be, of course, to be able to connect to the cube through multidimensional expressions that allow you to address each dimension in the cube independently. It's very powerful. And then books of reports. I alluded to the Executive Report Manager, which is a good example of that, which is really facilitates reporting. And then ad hoc reporting for that quick and easy stuff, or quick stuff. We wanted to be able to utilize it in kind of a pivot fashion, be able to select dimensions as needed, position them on the header, the row, the column as necessary, and it's all done through a hierarchical selection process. All the dimension structure in host analytics is in hierarchies. And then, of course, as Brian alluded to, we still use Excel for special purpose situations. We wanted to be able to output to Excel. And then other aspects, being able to drill down, pivot capabilities within reports. We wanted to be able to distribute across our user base easily. You can do that both through host analytics or through an email distribution. And then the vendor selection criteria. I went through quite a bit of due diligence in selecting host analytics, and a lot of the drivers I've listed here. I mean, software as a service the cloud platform was a paramount importance to us because we really didn't want the investment in the hardware. Host analytics that we selected is a subscription-based model, as we are, so we're comfortable with that. And what that does is basically make them earn your business every year because you have a way out. We are an SQL environment, so the SQL platform was important to us. Of course, as I mentioned before, multiple dimensions, hierarchical structures, web-based user interface. This is what enables us to leverage our people out in the field. And the next one, Brian referred to as well, which is key to us, is we wanted to be able to maintain this in finance without any IT support. And the cloud platform itself is what facilitates that. And I can attest that we have very little dependency, or actually no dependency, on our IT people. We're a technology business, but our people are involved in managing our website and promoting our product versus serving us. And then with a cloud-based type environment, immediate access to current updates are available. That's not a worry. We'll get a maintenance update every month and a feature update every quarter. We needed proof or comfort that the implementation process would be found through the vendor, and we wanted a quick line from implementation to start of the project. It was important that the vendor provided equal or greater functionality versus all the competitors. That Gartner recognition was there, and as a matter of fact, Host Analytics is now in the top right quadrant of the Gartner Magic Quadrant. And we wanted positive responses from the user base. As part of my due diligence, I actually attended the user conference for Host before making the decision, and just for the sole reason of interfacing with customers and getting feedback. A little more on the implementation, which I know is important to everyone. We are going into our third year of using Host Analytics. We started in August and completed about mid-September, and that was both consolidations and the budgeting process. And they have a very structured methodology that they will assist you with, but they will let you act on your own and make your own decisions. And really for us, it was they were there to consult with, say things like, are you sure you want to do that? Or have you thought about this? But not try to drive it to the point that at the end of the implementation, it's their product and not yours. So I've drawn here initiate, design, execute, and close, which is basically their methodology, which you see the individual components. Team selection, the initial training, they will activate your tenant, develop the project plan, and then begin to drill down and design your dimension members, etc. Begin your load rules, load your history. Moving forward, once the application is fully developed, user training, you complete, and then you hand off, and it went very well. Now, a little more, I've mentioned custom dimensions or cube dimensions quite a bit. Our account structure I've drawn here, and it's pretty straightforward. We address each in a hierarchy within an account dimension, balance sheets, statements of income, and cash flows. And then I have two more out to the right. And I'll skip to the far right, which I mentioned early on about not just financial information, but non-financial information, key indicators, statistics, other measurements that are gathered from different systems can be brought into one and managed together. The second to the last one, within my account structure, I've done a couple of things that could have been done in reporting, but BOD, Board of Directors, is the structure I put together that leverages my primary chart of accounts in a more compressed, more summarized fashion so that it's quickly accessed and you don't have to worry about addressing all the differences in reports. And I do the same thing with our audit report. When we have our annual audit, it's done in much more limited fashion, and I duplicate that in our system so that every time I close, I can look at it both from our management presentation to the audit report. Now this I've drawn up just to show, I keep mentioning cube, all the dimensions that are of use in the product. Many of them are required, and 5 of them are custom, which we defined individually. The custom ones are on the front, and which is for us we defined as department, product, customer, geography, and there's a red one over there I didn't have room for, other. And everything else is a required dimension. Of course, we have multiple companies. Your account structure is required, scenario being budget, forecast, etc. The time horizon, currency, measures being month-to-date, year-to-date, quarter-to-date, intercompany for consolidating eliminations, etc. is tracked there. So for the custom ones, I'll go down just a little bit further and show you that departments, in its sense, it's cost centers, but you'll see I've I have described as profit-driven. And what we do within SkyHawke is many cost centers we develop into a profit center and report that way so that our people then can operate within it and make decisions quickly within it. And then if it's not a profit center, then simply operating expense departments and then corporate overhead. And then for products, I mentioned our SkyHawke devices and the fact that we are a membership or subscription business model, and we offer golf services. This is very high level, of course, what I'm showing, which drills down much further, but these are the three areas that we look at. And then customers, our customers are really three large categories: big box like Dick's, green grass are the pro shops on the golf courses, and then individual consumers. And we have probably across that 600,000 customers. And the largest category, of course, would be consumers, which is primarily the membership itself. And then geographies, across North America, we go by region down to state, Europe and Canada as a whole, and then Europe and Asia is primarily the UK and Europe itself, and then the rest of the world. And then the last customized dimension we have set for like territory called sales reps. It's multi-purpose. Special projects is what we use it primarily for or secondarily for now, and then there's room for other uses as we grow it. Now, early on I talked about ETL, extract, translate, and load, and what I've tried to draw here is to kind of give you a feel for what we do on a beginning of month, end of month timeline. And I will load margins every week, and I will publish margin reports. Primarily it's graphical weekly, and when I do that, I'm loading from a subset of our ERP system, not from the general ledger. At the end of the month, I will then load from the general ledger, and it comes in, both of these are in two different sectors, two different load rules that I can erase individually or maintain individually, but at the end of the month, everything comes together and in two separate loads, one that's balanced, one that's not, that I do through an offset type entry, so that once I complete the end of the month, I have full financial statements that show basically accounts and departments from the GL and products, customers, geography, etc., that has been loaded every week from a subsystem itself. Then all that, of course, rolls into our published monthly financials and interim financials. Payoff points to us, the big one, access to one set of data by the entire organization and literally across the organization. Host Analytics likes to refer to it as one set of truth, and that's probably the best way to say that. Of course, something as simple as the chart of accounts is standardized across the company, so from that one source of truth, you can always report. And when someone comes and asks you a question and then asks another person a question, you're going to get the same answer. Quick cycle time for analysis for one-off type reports. Another big payoff has been financial statements and legacy systems are stored in finance. People have to ask for numbers within Host Analytics and the cloud service, then we make it much more accessible. This is a key one too, that in our budgeting process, it's no more about those are not my numbers because I sent some spreadsheet out that somebody maintained, sent it back, it got lost as far as they're concerned. The budget comes out in itself, and they go, that's not what my assumptions were. You've changed the numbers. Well, the process of them through Host Analytics providing their assumptions, they can't hide from that anymore. And we leverage the scorecards and desktops to a pretty large degree, so that Host enables you to customize both for presentation and operation uniquely for each person. Earlier I mentioned profit centers. That's what I'm alluding to here. Quickly get out information in terms of profit areas to our key managers, and as long as they're operating within budget guidelines, which they have ready access to, it allows them to make decisions quickly. And the ability to load from from different sources and bring together in one area. Our next steps, we do an annual budget today. We are actively moving toward a rolling 4-quarter forecast and then directionally into 5-year plans. That Boomi item that I had on my list of applications from hosts that we had in-house, we're actively moving towards implementing Boomi, and then a move to mobile devices versus through desktop website, etc. And that's it. Thank you. David?
Thank you, Roger. That's very helpful for us to understand the process you went through. We will now be launching our second polling question. Should be on your screen in moments here. Please, we ask everyone if you can answer these polling questions as it gives us better information. We'll leave that open for a bit. If you do have some questions, good time to use the question box in the GoToWebinar panel, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can today. I'll leave this up for just a little bit more if everyone can get their answers in, and then we will actually share the results of these first 2 polling questions, and we will have the 3rd polling question at the end of the presentation. Okay, give you a couple more seconds as we close this down, and then we will share the actual results. Okay, I will be closing it down now. Give me a moment here, and we will share the results of the first polling question. They should be coming up here quickly. Here we go. And Brian, showing 70% people using spreadsheets for planning, close management, and reporting. Is this pretty common to what you're seeing with your clients out there and in the industry?
Yeah, certainly. I think, as I mentioned in the presentation, most everybody is coming from Excel that ultimately transitions to an EPM system. It's ubiquitous, right? Especially as companies grow from a smaller startup phase or where they don't necessarily have all the resources. Excel is definitely a viable option. But as they continue to grow, become more sophisticated, either maybe become more global in their perspective, their business. There's definitely a need for a true system, and spreadsheets today are not a system, and they're really more just a tool. So, yeah, this is definitely very, very indicative of what we see in our customer base as well.
Great. I will share the results of our second polling question here in just a moment, so you'll be able to see this as well. And you want to make a couple comments on this as well?
It's definitely encouraging to see. I think if we had done this poll probably a year or 2 years ago, these numbers would be significantly different. In fact, I think I remember doing some webinars last year where the yes respondents were well under 50%. So, as I highlighted in the session, across the different domains, whether it be sales forecasting, workforce planning, your ERP systems, or even just in finance in general related to EPM systems, the adoption of cloud technology is certainly becoming much more prevalent, right? The vendors in the space are proving to be very formidable and demonstrating the value of not only cloud computing, but also of course, the core values of the systems that they bring to the table. And so it's great. I only expect this percentage to go up on the yes respondents as we continue to move over time.
And this is something I've seen as well doing a number of these presentations, that it is increasing there. Okay, we will now transition into the Q&A, and so please use the question box if you have any questions. This first question goes out to Roger, and I think it pertains to a lot of people looking to move to the cloud. The question is, how many people was on your internal implementation team? And second part, can you talk about how long it was from start to end?
Sure. We had I'm going to count them, 1, 2, 3, 5 people on our implementation team internally. Now, 3 of those were much more active than the other 2, but they were fairly representative from our business. And then, of course, we had the host team that was there to counsel us. And by the way, they did that as a fixed fee. In addition just at the beginning of the project to the subscription model or the subscription payment that's made to maintain the system. But it started in had a timeline up there in August, a little over 2 years ago, and we attacked consolidations, we attacked budgeting and planning simultaneously because we were entering our budgeting cycle at the time we were doing this implementation, and finished mid to late September. Pretty comfortable process, no real issues. What I would say, and I don't mean to get off the subject a little bit, but pay very close attention to the customizable dimensions and then to the account structure itself, because that's, once you get married to those, you can change, but you really don't want to have to go, that's one area you may have to back up if you don't plan properly and start over and lengthen the process.
Thank you. Our next question is for Brian, and it's one that comes up a lot, is if you could talk a little bit about cloud security and kind of how you guarantee that security or support it.
Sure, great question, and you're right. We do hear this question a lot, and but what I would say is that fortunately the question actually is not heard as frequently as it was in the past. But as I mentioned in the presentation, there's a couple different layers of security that are employed in cloud computing, and there's encryption of data, first of all. So the communication between a user's browser and the data center where we house our information, obviously we encrypt all the transmissions that happen between those two different points. And in addition, the data that is actually stored is encrypted in and of itself, and as well as the backups of the data that are taken quite regularly. In addition to that, we are audited quite frequently, and so, for example, there's a couple of industry standards as far as cloud computing security is concerned. SSAE 16 SOC 1 Type 2 and SOC 2 audits. Those are pretty standard, and of course we comply with that. There's also safe harbor statements which have been in existence for roughly 15-20 years, and so both domestically as well as internationally, we support those statements as well. And so that, in addition to the actual architecture, if you will, of our application, which is that every tenant has their information siloed from has their application siloed from every other customer. So there's never a possibility that one customer could theoretically access the application and get visibility into another customer's data. It just can't happen physically.
Great, appreciate that. This next question goes back to Roger, and the question is Boomi your company GL system or moving toward the GL system? And part two of that question, do you use Host to do balance sheet and cash flow planning / reporting?
I'll take the second half first. Yes, we do. Our account structure addresses both the balance sheet and the statement of cash flows, and what Host will enable you to do is to assign logic to the cash flow account structure itself to let it occur when data is loaded and processed and the consolidation takes place. So, at the end of your closing process for us, the statement of cash flows is already done. And repeat the first part of that question again, David.
The first question was, is Boomi your company GL system or going to be your GL system?
No, Boomi is simply a connector that Host offers that will allow, through APIs, allow you to reach out to your ERP system, which is where the GL, of course, lives. And if you're talking about GL information or sales information or whatever, we manually extract and load. Boomi will allow you to make a connection to those devices and bring it in seamlessly.
Great. And this goes back to Brian. I think this is the last question we have time for today. Is what kind of internal bandwidth do you need to support cloud computing applications?
So I assume by internally mean within your organization, if my assumption is correct. It's fairly limited. As Roger mentioned in his presentation, he's within finance. He doesn't interface with IT at all. So finance owns the application. They own not only from day one, they own the design, but they also own the ongoing maintenance of the application, and that's really just from a design perspective. I don't mean like tuning servers or anything like that. So it's really up to his team to, and as well as any of our other customers, to manage that application to meet their needs. And so, we have anywhere from single individual teams and very, some of our smaller customers, upwards of, somewhat larger teams that might be distributed across the globe for some of our multinational billion-dollar companies. And it really, the size and or the number of bodies that is required is really dependent upon how deeply you have embraced EPM. So as Roger mentioned, they started with budgeting and consolidation together. Some of our customers happen to step through the process. They may do budgeting first, and as such, you might have a smaller team. And then once you take on consolidation, you're probably incorporating more of the accounting group within your organization, and so there's probably some additions to the team. And then when you start to get into deeper analytics and or KPIs and dashboards and scorecarding, you might engage other individuals to participate in that process. So it really is a factor of the depth of the system that you use, as well as the size of your organization.
Thank you. That pretty much wraps up our Q&A. Just a couple things before we end. At the end of today's presentation, you'll be asked to take a short survey. When the webinar concludes, please do this so we can help continue to bring you great webinars. Also, please join us at Proformative.com to ask additional questions where we can continue this conversation. If we didn't get to your questions today, we'll be passing those on to today's speakers so they can follow up with you directly. And if you have any questions on CPE, please just email us at cpe@proformative.com. I want to remind everyone about our CFO Dimension Conference coming up in New York on August 21st and 22nd. This is strategic leadership for senior level finance professionals, and it's going to be a great conference. We hope you'll join us there. At the end of today's presentation, you will have a link for more information on CFO Dimensions. I do want to thank Roger and Brian for that insight today. It gave us a lot of great information, and I want to thank Host Analytics for sponsoring today's event. Great job, guys. I will now launch our... Hey, thank you. I will begin to launch the last of 3 polling questions. You should be seeing that on your screen just shortly. Please, at the end of the presentation, before we close things down, you will have a chance to answer our survey, and that's helpful for us to provide you better content and more information. Also on that survey, you'll have a link for an introduction to Host Analytics or an introduction to any one of our 2 speakers today, as well as information on CFO Dimensions. I'll leave this open just for a few more minutes here, or a few more seconds, so everyone can get their answers in, and then you'll be seeing the survey at the end. Thank you. As this concludes our presentation, we thank you for your time, we thank you for your attendance, and we hope to see you at another Proformative event soon and at Proformative.com online. This concludes today's webinar. Have a great rest of your day.